The church bells were still ringing when I realized the world I built had just collapsed. My best friend, the one who used to fix my veil, hold my hand through every heartbreak, and swear she'd never let me down, was walking down the aisle. But not towards me. She was walking to him. My fiancé, my future. My everything. The gown she wore looked hauntingly familiar because it was mine. The same dress I had chosen months ago, the one she helped me pick while pretending to be happy for me. And there she was, smiling, radiant, pretending it was her day, while I stood outside those church doors, clutching the invitation that should have had my name on it. Everyone thought I had disappeared. But I was there, hiding in the back row, my heart beating so loud I could barely breathe. I wanted to scream, to ask how could you? But I didn't. I just watched, frozen, as the priest said the words that once belonged to my dream. "Do you take this man?" And she said it, without a blink, without a tear. "I do." I felt the floor vanish beneath me. Everything I had, my relationship, my job, my peace, somehow she had taken it all. One betrayal after another, and I never saw it coming, but life has a strange way of balancing things. Because just when I thought I had lost everything, fate handed me something unimaginable. A document, one that revealed a secret my best friend had buried for years. Something worth far more than my heartbreak, a $60 million truth. And that day, I promised myself I wouldn't just survive. I'd make her regret ever crossing me. Her name was Rachel. We met in college, two broke girls sharing one umbrella under a thunderstorm. She was loud, funny, effortlessly confident. I was quiet, the kind who planned everything weeks ahead. Somehow our differences fit together like puzzle pieces. We became inseparable. We studied together, dreamed together, even shared the same dorm room for 2 years. She was the sister I never had. When I got my first job offer, she baked me a cake. When I cried after my first heartbreak, she sat with me all night saying, "You deserve someone who'd never lied to you." Funny how those words sting now. When I met Ethan, she was the first to know. He was charming, focused, kind, the kind of man who looked at you like you were the only person in the room. Rachel approved instantly. She said, "Finally, someone who deserves you." She helped me plan everything, our dates, our proposal, even our engagement party. She knew what flowers I liked, what songs made me cry, what dreams I had for our future home. But maybe she knew too much. Maybe that's where it all began. Back then, she worked as an assistant in a real estate firm. I worked in marketing. Ethan ran a startup that was just beginning to take off. Money wasn't everything, but we dreamed big. Rachel would visit often, sometimes too often. She'd bring coffee for Ethan when he was working late. I thought it was kindness. That's what best friends do. But looking back, there were moments that didn't feel right. The way she'd laugh at his jokes longer than she should. The way her eyes lingered a second too long when he wasn't looking. The way she'd say, "You're so lucky," with that quiet envy behind her smile. I ignored it. Because that's what you do when you trust someone like family. You don't imagine betrayal hiding inside laughter. Months passed. My career grew and so did Ethan's business. Rachel, however, was struggling. She lost her job, moved in with her cousin, and started borrowing money. I helped her without hesitation. She said, "I'll pay you back soon." I told her, "Don't worry. That's what friends are for." I meant it. I never realized how one-sided that kind of loyalty could be, until I found out she had started working for Ethan's company behind my back. He told me she was helping with some design work. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? They were both people I loved. The wedding plans went on. Rachel was my maid of honor. She helped me choose the gown, the venue, even tasted the cake. She knew every detail, every dream, every weakness. Sometimes I'd joke, if I ever disappear, you'd know how to replace me perfectly. And she'd laugh, a little too sincerely. I remember the last normal day before everything fell apart. We were sitting at a cafe, talking about life, love, and the future. She looked at me and said, "You know, not everyone gets happy endings. Some people have to take them for themselves." I laughed it off, thinking it was one of her philosophical moods. I didn't know she meant mine. That night, Ethan told me he needed space. He said he was confused, overwhelmed, unsure about marriage. I cried in Rachel's arms. She said all the right words. He's stupid if he lets you go. But her eyes, they didn't match her tone. Within weeks, Ethan vanished from my life. No calls, no closure. Rachel stopped answering too. And when the wedding invitation came in the mail months later, my hands trembled so hard I could barely open it. It wasn't from a stranger. It was from them. Rachel and Ethan, it said, invite you to celebrate their love. And that was the moment I realized betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who once held your heart in their hands. After the wedding invitation arrived, I stared at it for hours. My name was nowhere, not as a guest, not as a friend, not even in the acknowledgments. Just two names written in golden letters, Rachel and Ethan, and a date that was once supposed to be mine. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a cruel joke. But as I read the details, my hands went cold. Same church. Same venue. Same planner I had booked months ago. Everything I had planned was being recycled by them. For days I couldn't eat or sleep. My phone stayed silent. Then the whispers began. Mutual friends started avoiding my calls. One night, a text appeared from an old coworker. I saw Ethan and Rachel at the mall today. Are you okay? I didn't reply. I didn't know how. The next morning, I went to Ethan's office. I told myself I just needed closure, that maybe there was a misunderstanding. But as I walked in, the receptionist's smile froze. They're on their honeymoon, she said quietly. The word hit like a bullet. I stumbled outside, my vision blurred with tears. My chest felt hollow. Everything I thought I knew, every promise, every dream, shattered in seconds. For weeks I replayed every memory. How long had this been going on? How many times had they looked at each other while pretending to care about me? I remembered one night when Ethan came home late. His phone buzzed. Rachel. He said she needed help with her resume. I believed him. I trusted them both. That trust was my biggest mistake. I didn't attend their wedding. I couldn't, but I saw the pictures online. Rachel in my dress, wearing my smile, standing beside my dream. The comments below were merciless. They're perfect together. They always had chemistry. She's glowing. Every word sliced deeper. Yet beneath the pain, something else began to stir, a quiet, controlled anger. I started noticing details I'd missed before. Ethan had suddenly bought a new car. Rachel moved into a luxury apartment. Neither of them had that kind of money. People whispered that Ethan's business had exploded overnight, that Rachel had helped him make smart investments. But no one knew where the money came from. One evening, I ran into a former colleague from Ethan's startup. He hesitated before speaking. Look, I shouldn't say this, but Rachel didn't just join the company. She took over part of it. My heart stopped. What do you mean? He looked away. She convinced him to sell half the shares to her. Said she'd fund the expansion. But no one knows where she got the cash. That was the first time I heard about the trust fund. I didn't believe it at first. Rachel came from a modest family. But rumors grew, an inheritance, a secret estate. Still, no one could confirm it. Until one day, a lawyer named Mr. Harris called me. I believe you were once close with Rachel Parker, he said. My heart tightened. We were best friends. He sighed. Then you should know, Rachel has been hiding a trust. She inherited over $60 million 5 years ago. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. 5 years ago? That was when she pretended to be broke, when I paid her bills, when she cried about losing her job. She had been rich the entire time. Why would she hide that? I whispered. Mr. Harris paused. Maybe she didn't want people to know, or maybe she was waiting to use it. The words burned. I finally understood. She hadn't stolen my fiancé because she loved him. She did it because she could. Because she wanted everything I had. That night, I collapsed onto the floor and cried until the sound broke in my throat. Then, somewhere between heartbreak and exhaustion, a thought surfaced, calm and steady. You took everything, Rachel, I whispered to the empty room. But you forgot one thing? I still know who you really are. And that was the moment I stopped being a victim. That was the moment I decided the story wasn't over. After that call from Mr. Harris, something inside me shifted. For the first time in months, I felt awake. The grief that once drowned me began to fade, replaced by something sharper focus. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I was going to get even, not with anger, but with truth. I started with what I had: old messages, shared files, and every email between Rachel, Ethan, and me. Patterns began to surface. Rachel had slowly inserted herself into every corner of my life, my work, my relationship, my circle. Every step had been calculated, like she'd rehearsed it all in advance. But she'd made one mistake. She underestimated me. I wasn't going to destroy her with rage. I'd let her own lies do that. I met Mr. Harris again. He was hesitant, but I could tell he carried a quiet guilt for not revealing her secret earlier. Her inheritance was supposed to fund a charity trust, he said carefully. If someone were to find proof that she used that money for personal gain, well, that could be serious. That was all I needed. That night, I sat at my desk with a blank notebook and wrote 3 words: expose the truth. I dug through public records, donation files, financial reports, every trace of her so-called foundation. Helping hands. And there it was. A perfect facade. Donations funneled from her own trust into her private investment accounts. The money she pretended to give away was the same money she used to buy cars, houses, and luxury trips. Her charity was a mirror. It reflected nothing but greed. I gathered everything: bank statements, receipts, screenshots, signatures. Proof that her philanthropy was nothing but a cover. But revenge isn't just about what you reveal. It's about when. Timing is everything. I wanted her to feel safe, celebrated, untouchable. Right before it all collapsed, so I waited. I watched her bask in her new fame. Interviews, photo shoots, speeches about empowerment and kindness. She spoke about honesty while living a life built on deceit. I smiled quietly every time I saw her name trending online. Because I knew the higher she climbed, the harder she'd fall. When the time was right, I moved. I sent my entire file, the receipts, the transfers, the property documents to the Charity Commission and 3 journalists who specialized in financial scandals. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, the headlines appeared. Philanthropist Rachel Parker under investigation for fraud. Her perfect image shattered. She deleted her accounts, interviews were canceled, and Ethan's business suddenly faced audit inquiries. Her carefully built empire began to crack in silence, but I wasn't finished. I found one last thing. She had listed my name illegally as a consultant on her foundation's paperwork, to make it look legitimate. I contacted the lawyers handling the case and showed them proof. They cleared my name and recorded me as the whistleblower. The same woman she betrayed had now become the reason for her downfall. Ethan reached out a month later. I didn't know, he said. She lied to me too. Please call. I stared at his message for a long time before typing 3 words. It's too late. And for the first time since it all began, I felt peace, not the quiet of giving up, but the kind that comes when you finally reclaim what's yours, your dignity, your voice, your power. I didn't ruin Rachel's life. She did that herself. I just held up a mirror and let her see what she'd become. The day Rachel's empire started to crumble, the world looked calm, almost mocking. The sky was clear, the air still, as if nature refused to acknowledge the storm that was about to hit her. Her face was everywhere on television screens, social media, news sites. The headlines screamed her name in ways she had never imagined. Philanthropist Rachel Parker under investigation for fraud. Charity. Queen's secret deals exposed. The woman who once built her image on lies was now being torn apart by the truth. I watched it all unfold from my small apartment, sitting in silence with a cup of coffee. Every word, every broadcast felt like the world was finally catching up to what I already knew. But I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel hatred either. What I felt was something much deeper: closure. A few days later, I received an email from the charity board. There would be an official hearing. Rachel was required to appear and explain the missing funds. They invited me as a witness. I hesitated for a moment, but deep down I knew I had to go. Not to humiliate her, but to end it. The room was filled with whispers when I walked in. Cameras flashed, pens scratched, and at the far end of the table, Rachel sat, pale and shaken. She looked smaller than I remembered, stripped of her arrogance. When her eyes met mine, her lips parted in disbelief. For the first time, she didn't have a script, no fake smile to hide behind. She tried to speak. What are you doing here? I didn't answer. I simply slid a folder toward her. She opened it slowly, page after page of documents, bank records, signatures, and emails. Her face drained of color. When she reached the last page, her hands started to shake. "This is fake," she whispered, her voice cracking. But the investigators didn't look convinced. One of them spoke firmly. "Ms. Parker, these records were verified. Would you like to explain the property purchased in Mr. Ethan's name using donor funds?" Rachel froze. Ethan, sitting in the corner, looked away. The man who once stood beside her was silent now, his face buried in his hands. She turned to him, desperate. "You knew about this. You were part of it." But he didn't answer. He didn't even look at her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then I stood up. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding. "You're right, Rachel. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You were supposed to be my best friend." Her eyes filled with tears, and in that instant, every mask she had ever worn shattered. The cameras clicked. The whispers grew louder. It was over. Within days, her accounts were frozen, her assets seized, her reputation destroyed. Ethan filed for divorce before the month ended. The woman who had everything now had nothing but the echo of her own deceit. Weeks later, I saw her one last time. She was leaving the courthouse, head down, eyes empty. When she noticed me, she stopped. For a moment, we stood there in silence, two people connected by pain and choice. She finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "You won, didn't you?" I smiled faintly. "No, Rachel. I just stopped losing." She turned away, shoulders trembling, and disappeared into the crowd. I watched her go without anger, without satisfaction, just peace. The kind of peace that comes when life finally corrects what betrayal once broke. As I walked away, the noise behind me faded, replaced by the sound of my own footsteps. Soft, steady, free. The truth had spoken for me. I didn't need revenge anymore. Justice had already done the rest. Months passed, and life slowly settled into a calm rhythm I had almost forgotten existed. I moved to a quiet coastal town where mornings smelled of salt and second chances. I'd sit by the balcony with coffee in my hands, watching the sunlight ripple across the water. The waves moved like time-soft, endless, forgiving. For the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling the weight of someone else's betrayal pressing on my chest. Ethan and Rachel had become names from another lifetime. I no longer searched for their updates or wondered where they were. The world had already given me my answer. They were lessons now, not people. Memories that no longer hurt, just existed quietly in the background of who I had once been. I didn't rebuild my life out of revenge. I rebuilt it out of peace. I started a foundation for women who had lost everything, betrayed, abandoned, forgotten, just like I once was. Every time someone walked through those doors with tears in their eyes, I saw my past self. And I would tell them, "You'll rise again. You just don't know it yet." There were nights when I still thought about Rachel. Not with anger, but with a strange sense of curiosity. I wondered if she ever thought of me when the silence became too heavy. If she ever looked back and realized what her greed had cost her. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't, but I no longer needed to know, because I had learned something that changed everything. Betrayal doesn't end you, it frees you. It strips away illusions, shows you who you are when everything fake falls apart. Losing Rachel and Ethan didn't break me. It cleansed me. It reminded me that peace doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go. There was a time I thought I needed revenge to heal. But now I understood that healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It's waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer angry. It's walking past the ghosts of your past and feeling nothing but gratitude for the lessons they left behind. Sometimes losing people isn't a punishment. It's protection. Sometimes betrayal isn't your downfall. It's your liberation. I once believed they took everything from me, my love, my trust, my future. But standing there, watching the horizon melt into gold, I finally understood the truth. I didn't lose a best friend or a fiancé. I just lost two people who were never meant to stay.